14, 1972, Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 crashed in the Andes on the border between Argentina and Chile. The 45 passengers and crew on board, mostly members of a Uruguayan rugby team, were isolated in an inhospitable and hostile environment, with sub-zero temperatures, food shortages, and inadequate clothing. For 72 days, the survivors struggled to survive, facing extreme physical and psychological challenges. To stay alive, they had to resort to cannibalism, a decision that marked them forever. There were 45 people on this plane, mostly members of a Uruguayan rugby team. The plane was en route to Santiago, Chile, when it crashed in a snowstorm. The survivors found themselves trapped in a hostile environment, with sub-zero temperatures, lack of food and shelter. The days passed, and his hopes of rescue were fading. The survivors worked together to build shelters and find food. However, they soon realized that their food supplies were limited. In the first few weeks, several survivors died of starvation or hypothermia. As food supplies dwindled, the survivors were faced with a terrible decision: resort to cannibalism or starve to death. Finally, the survivors came to the conclusion that it was necessary to eat the flesh of the deceased in order to survive. The survivors developed a series of strategies to survive in the extreme conditions of the Andes. Despite the difficulties, the survivors showed great solidarity and cooperation. The survivors did not lose hope of being rescued. They sent search parties to look for help. Finally, after 72 days, the survivors were rescued by a group of Chilean mountaineers. The rescue of the survivors was a miracle. Nando Parado was one of the 16 survivors of the Flight 571 crash. In his interview, Parado talks about the first days of the accident, the decision of cannibalism, and the rescue effort. Parado remembers that the first few days were the most difficult. The survivors were injured, disoriented, and hungry.
We didn't know what to do. We were lost.
Parado also talks about the decision of cannibalism.
It was a difficult decision, but we knew it was necessary to survive.
Parado talks about the rescue.
It was a moment of joy and relief. We were free at last.
Roberto Canessa was another of the 16 survivors of the Flight 571 crash. In her interview, Canessa talks about her role in the rescue. Canessa says that after food supplies ran out, he and another survivor, Nando Parado, decided to climb the Andes to seek help. The journey was long and dangerous. Canessa and Parado walked for days, enduring sub-zero temperatures and adverse weather conditions. Finally, Canessa and Parado arrived in a Chilean village. His arrival led to the rescue of the other survivors. Graciela Sabella is the mother of Roberto Canessa. In her interview, Sabella talks about her son's experience and that of the other survivors. Sabella said she was desperate when she heard about the accident.
I didn't know if my son was alive.
Sabella also spoke about the impact of the experience on survivors.
None of them are the same after what happened.